there's been much demand for some time that I talk about this NEET PG, NEET UG, this whole admission issue, because young doctors have been on strike. They were on strike for quite some time. Then they were also keeping away from OPD, so that was like a partial strike. Hospital system, the medical system was thrown out of gear, and this at a time when Omicron was knocking at our doors, and in fact it has now quite rudely entered our homes as well. Now, what exactly was going on? And this also led to this very ugly situation in Delhi, where Delhi police, as Delhi police has come to be lately, also used strong arm methods against doctors who were protesting. So one reason I haven't spoken about this is that I myself was so cluttered in my head, I might still be, as you probably will realize at the end of this episode of Cut the Clutter, but I was diffident. I was diffident because it just looked like NEET. What is NEET? NEET PG, okay, PG could be postgraduate. NEET UG, okay, undergraduate. AIQ, so what is AIQ? So this went on and on and on, and list 25, Schedule 7 of the Constitution. This was very complicated. Also, medical education is really, I should make a personal confession, not something that I should be qualified to talk about, because I, like many others of my generation, when the choice was either to try and become an engineer or a doctor, and frankly, if you were not so hot at math, which I was far from, then to try and become a doctor was the only solution or only route. And I got out of that route early enough in life, because I scored less than 50% in my pre-medical, and 50% then used to be the minimum qualification for medical admission. So I would never have gone through any medical admission process. So I now realize that in old days, there were different systems. Central government's medical colleges had their PMT, pre-medical test, and then states had their own systems. Now, much has changed since then. So what's happening right now with medical education, that has been partly resolved today by the Supreme Court order, and that's the reason we are talking about this. This is rooted way back in the past. So this began in 1984. 1984, I've often said, was probably the newsiest year in our generation. That was the year Operation Blue Star took place. That's the year Indira Gandhi was assassinated. That's the year massacres against Sikhs took place. That's also the year Bhopal gas tragedy took place. Also importantly, that's the year India climbed down to Siachen and took over the glacier. So it was a very newsy year. But one bit of news that we haven't paid attention to in 1984 is the medical admission issue. Now, I've always said that everything that started in 1984, every story that started in 1984 still continues. And so we've added one more story to that list, and that is medical admissions, medical college admissions. So what happened in 1984 was that Supreme Court passed an order. Until then, state governments decided what happened in medical colleges owned by the state governments. Central government decided centrally what happened by way of admissions in medical colleges run by them. In 1984, Supreme Court gave an order whereby they said that all state governments which cede or give away or contribute, you can choose your expression, 15% of all undergraduate seats in their medical college to a central pool. Similarly, they will contribute 50%, 50. First is 15, for undergraduate. Postgraduate, 50. That is 50% of all their seats to this central pool. This central pool was called something that mystified me all this while, AIQ, or All India Quota. Now this All India Quota, ironically or fortunately or unfortunately, again, you choose your objective depending on which side of this divide you are, but it came to be called as merit quota. That all these seats had gone into merit. Why was it called merit quota? Because reservations, even SC/ST reservations, were not applicable to these. So it was then said, oh, all these seats have gone to the merit quota. So people from SCs, STs, by that time, by 1984, there was no OBC reservation. So people from SC, STs don't, quote unquote, break through the glass ceiling without having the merit. So this is limited to meritorious students, which is obviously upper caste students. Now, I'm not saying it by way of an endorsement, so be careful. I also have to be careful because somebody will tomorrow take out a 20-second clip and say, oh, Shekhar Gupta endorsed the idea that only upper castes have merit. I'm not endorsing the idea. I'm just telling you that serendipitously or surreptitiously, again you choose your expression, I'll use the second one, surreptitiously, this was done in a way that these seats came to be reserved for what is called as general category. So SCs and STs could not get any share of this. That happened in 1984. That led to a lot of people protesting, a lot of people running to court. But this just continued like this. In 2009, because there were a lot of constitutional and legal challenges, in 2009, that is 25 years later, once again, these are areas in which India's judiciary, particularly the top court, has to look within. अपने गिरेबान में भी झांक के देखना चाहिए. It took 25 years for the Supreme Court to bring some sanity to this. In 2009, Supreme Court ruled that there will be reservation in All India quota also, in what was called as merit quota. So what was earlier called erroneously and surreptitiously as merit quota, it was now still an All India quota, but it was All India quota and open to everybody on the same basis as any other admission system in the country. That is, SCs and STs, candidates from scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, got their reservation in this quota as well. This reservation was based on what the central government laid down, which is 15%, 15% for scheduled castes and 7.5% for scheduled tribes. And then things changed further because, as we know, in 2006, Arjun Singh pushed the idea of OBC reservations. We know that this had gone on right from Mandal times. This had come into jobs in some other areas, but this has not come into admissions. In 2006, another amendment was carried out, I think 93rd Amendment, and whereby UPA government brought in 27% OBC quota everywhere in admissions for some reason. So again, serendipitously or surreptitiously. I would prefer surreptitiously because that's how these things are done, because we know who the elites in our country are. We are the elites in so many ways. People living in Delhi, usually from upper castes, privileged classes, and they are the ones who are decision makers. So UPA government, while they brought in OBC quota everywhere, in this All India quota medical seats, they did not implement that. They were exempted from 27% OBC reservations. So OBCs had a grievance and they were pushing with that grievance, and central government at that point, UPA government, decided not to entertain this and they carried on. But then this also changed in the course of time. What happened then was that in 2019, Modi government actually righted this UPA wrong. They righted this UPA wrong by saying no, 27% OBC quota will also be applicable to these admissions to All India quota seats. That's about 40,000 plus seats. And they said this will be available there, this will be applicable there. As they did that, and this was also a pre-election thing, they also said that look, upper castes complain that many of them are poor also, many of them are underprivileged also, so they get left out and the system is unfair to them. So we are also making a reservation of 10% seats for economically weaker sections among general category, right? Which means anybody from upper castes who passes the test of having their family income below a certain threshold can also get seats out of that 10% economically weaker sections quota. And they said this will also be applicable to All India quota seats. Now, as that happened, a bunch of doctors went in challenge to it in Supreme Court of India. And they said that, look, you can do what you want to do by amending the constitution, but these changes you have brought in after the notification for this year's NEET exam. Now, NEET exam is an important exam. This is National Eligibility and Entrance Test, right, for medical education. Now, you have already issued the notification. You cannot apply this retrospectively, this quota, this OBC and EWS quota, after issuing the notification. So whatever you might do, they didn't say it, but implication is whatever you might do it from next year. You can't first notify the examination and then say that these further reservation categories are being added to it. That's the challenge that's been going on in the Supreme Court of India. And Supreme Court had held it back. Because they had held it back last year, medical admissions could not take place in India. So today you were on the verge of a situation where Indian medical education would have lost a whole year. And that's what Justice Chandrachud said today in his order, that look, we are trying to get around the problem whereby a whole year of medical education will be lost in the country. So right now, this will continue. This quota of 27% OBCs and 10% EWS will continue in the current system also. These admissions will now be made, and with the admissions, something called, again, I told you I was very confused by this alphabet soup. So NEET PG counseling. So what is counseling? So now I understand that in medical education, counseling has a very different meaning. Counseling means once you get selected for something, that means 45,000 people get selected, then you, over a meeting, are allocated the medical college you will go to. That depends on the percentile where your score is, and also the specialization you will go into. You might want to go into cardiology, but you may be told no, but with your specialization only this and is available. I don't know what are the hottest specializations these days, but I can only, and I think quite safely, presume that people at the best percentile level will get the specialization that today has the greatest sex appeal. What it is, I don't know. So that is how it is done, and this will continue like that. Now, in the middle of this, there were also people who went to court saying, how has this limit of 8 lakh rupees per year for economically weaker sections has been fixed? And discussion went in that direction, that look, how do you decide that 8 lakhs is the limit at which you declare a family economically weaker, so they deserve reservation? Once again, the judges raised the question that look, you have the same limit for OBC quota, that OBCs also, you say that economically weaker sections among the OBCs have this limit. Similarly, economically weaker sections among general category also has this limit. This does not sound equitable, because OBCs by definition have been more backward and have been more deprived. So how can you have the same level for both? Did you even think about it? You just issued this notification in 2 days. So Government of India at that point got worried, because doctors were on strike and they wanted to find a way around. So they set up a committee under former Revenue Secretary Ajay Bhushan Pandey, also the former CEO of Aadhaar. In fact, he featured in one of our off-the-cuff shows. A committee headed by him, including Sanjeev Sanyal, the Principal Economic Advisor to Government of India, Central Government, and also Mr. V.K. Malhotra, who is Member Secretary of Indian Council of Social Sciences Research. So they gave a committee report, which the court for now has accepted, while the larger debate in the court case goes on. So that is exactly what's happened today, and I've given you a logical story from 1984 onwards. But as I keep telling you, every story that began in 1984 continues on and on and on, and usually it's a story of a nightmare, so it carries on and on and on, like those Bikram or Betal kind of stories. So this 1984 Bikram or Betal, this also reflected in an order of the Madras High Court. Now what happens in Tamil Nadu is, Tamil Nadu has had its own kind of system of reservations and its own kind of system of social justice. So Tamil Nadu has been in the forefront of protesting against this All India quota. Also a national examination, NEET as it's called, National Eligibility and Entrance Test. Also there was a challenge in Madras High Court where the judges there talked about the income limit for economically weaker section quotas. And that then came up in Supreme Court, because the judges in Madras High Court said that look, you cannot decide anything on economically weaker sections and the quotas and the limits, because 103rd Constitution Amendment, using which Modi government had brought in the EWS reservation is already being debated in the Supreme Court. It's already being contested in Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has to rule on it. So unless the Supreme Court permits it, you cannot take any decisions, including put income limits for EWS quota. Supreme Court, on the other hand, has now said that the Madras High Court had transgressed its jurisdiction. It was only hearing a contempt case. It had no business, no need to make this observation about a case which is already ongoing in the Supreme Court. That case is in front of a 5-judge bench. It's a constitutional case, and that will be decided in the course of time. Now, again, to try and understand what is this NEET issue, and why are some states angry, particularly Tamil Nadu? In Tamil Nadu, we've seen very angry protests, very violent protests also sometimes. And you can see the young people of Tamil Nadu are very angry with this NEET exam. And Tamil Nadu government, strong DMK government under Stalin, they have spoken very strongly on this, and they have made representations to the central government. In fact, DMK MPs had also come in to meet Home Minister Amit Shah about this. So what is the story and what is the issue? To understand that, a friend of mine and colleague of mine, Dilip Mandal, who also writes for us quite often, he sent me the copy of a private member's bill that has been presented in Parliament by P. Wilson, who is a DMK MP. Reading that short bill, it's an amendment bill, is the best way to understand what these objections are. And when you understand them, you might be able to look at these a little bit more sympathetically than people instinctively do, because I think there are some valid arguments there. I'm not saying the solutions they suggest are the best solutions, but there are very valid arguments there. So what he has said, what Wilson has said in his private member's bill is that, look, you amend Dentists Act of 1948 and you amend the National Medical Commission Act of 2019. Amend them, why? So he says that Section D of the Dentist Act of 1948, it empowers the center to conduct a uniform national medical entrance test for dentistry, right? He says that state government should also have the powers, but I will tell you this in slightly greater detail in a minute. Then he says that Section 14 of the National Medical Commission Act, that's a very recent law. Section 14 of the National Medical Commission Act, National Medical Commission, by the way, came in place of the old Medical Council of India, which had not earned any great name. Let me just leave it at that. So Section 14 of the National Medical Commission Act, it said that all admissions in all government medical colleges in India will be held through one national examination, that is NEET. Then he says this NEET is being conducted by CBSE. Because CBSE conducts it, it pretty much goes by CBSE syllabus. Now that's very unfair to students who come out of state government-run schools. And it is usually the poorest families that send their children to state government-run schools. Everybody tries to send their children to central schools, private schools, CBSE schools. In fact, if you drive around the country, one of the things advertised on our walls in cities, villages, the poorest parts of the country, CBSE school or ICSE, not that much ICSE, but CBSE, English medium. So what happens to all those who go to state government-run schools? If you see my class 10 certificate, this is Haryana State Education Board, right? Nobody had heard of CBSE in the states by then, and even now it's not as if a majority of students in India are passing +2 out of CBSE. A very large majority are passing through state government schools. Now, state government schools have their own curriculum, they have their own medium of instruction, and that is seen to be disadvantageous, again on merit basis, to the poorer students, and that is what Tamil Nadu government is objecting to. So he lists very pithily, he lists 3 objections to these bills. One, he says this decimates the right of the state to regulate medical education. And then he explains, I will also try and explain to you in as uncluttered a manner as possible how that happens constitutionally. So 1, decimates the right of the states to regulate medical education. Two, it's largely based on CBSE syllabus, so it's very disadvantageous to poorer students in every state who come through state government-run colleges. Basically, it can also be seen as a push or a nudge by the center to all the states to move their education towards a CBSE system. Now, that is not something that most states in India would like to do. And number three, this leads to the need for extra coaching. So a lot of the families, a lot of the poor families, lower middle class families have to sell their buffaloes, borrow money, sell their homes, land to get their people extra coaching. Coaching is very expensive. You see all these ads of superstars who may not even have graduated properly, telling you to get into this coaching system or those coaching classes or these tuitions. These are very expensive. Most families can't afford them. They are borrowing money to get extra coaching for their children, which should not be necessary. And in this case, again, families which can get a little bit more money, create a bit more money, find a bit more money, beg, steal or borrow, get their children the coaching, they are at a disadvantage. Once again, the poorer families, whatever the caste, upper caste, middle caste, lower caste, they are the ones that suffer. So three objections which I think are quite valid. One, decimate the right of the state to regulate medical education. Two, largely based on CBSE syllabus, so disadvantageous to those who go to state schools. And third, makes extra coaching, commercial coaching indispensable, and that is very rude to the poorest. Now, he explains constitutionally that education has been placed under entry 5 of list 3 of 7th schedule of the constitution. That gives center some rights, right? But the same provisions also give the state governments the competencies in executive and legislative, both domains, to regulate admissions, to regulate medical education. And he says that, look, that is why now center has got these extra powers under the Dentist Act and National Medical Commission Act using entry 66 of list 1. Now, if you are a constitutionalist, you might remember these by heart, otherwise you can just Google and check these out. And he says, under entry 66 and list 1, center has taken the power to conduct all India examinations for admissions. But these powers don't override the powers the states already have under entry 25 list 3. So this way states are being denied their powers, and he's asked for an amendment. It's not going to happen, it's a private member's bill, but this is a very good way of understanding. So even when you don't agree with somebody, or even particularly when an issue completely confuses you, don't instinctively jump to the side that suits us, right? We should not do that. We should look at the other side, and that other side becomes very, very clear in this one. And that's why he says also that the powers that the center has given itself through National Medical Commission Act to conduct an entrance exam for MBBS and also an exit exam, so you can get your license to practice. Those powers should also devolve to the state governments, particularly in medical colleges that state governments run. So that is the larger controversy. Now, immediately what's happened? You might say, okay, if these admissions were delayed, why were these doctors who already are admitted, who already are in medical college, why were they protesting? Why were they braving police action against them? Why were they hitting the streets? What were they complaining about? Aap to already andar ho na. What are you complaining about? So what happens is that postgraduate medical education is 3 years. So who are the people who mostly run our hospitals, our wards, our OPDs? It is medical students, mostly postgraduate medical students, students who've already done MBBS, who are in their first year, second year, third year. Now what happens is that once they get in the third year, by December in the third year, they are all preparing for their exams. These are third year walas. So as they are preparing for their exams, second year walas come in and they start taking over their business. So that brings in a lot more pressure on the second year walas. But there is cushioning. The cushioning is that by that time, the new lot of first year walas has come in. So as the new lot of first year walas comes in, they take over some of the pressure. This year, because of this, admission process had got stalled. Thanks to this litigation, the first year students have simply not come in. Third year walas are busy preparing for exams. First year hasn't come in. So there is too much pressure on the second year students. There are too few of them. They are working sometimes 36-hour shifts, and that is why they've been complaining. So that is what this larger story is. Now, before I let you go, I'll give you some basic facts, because you must be wondering how many seats are there in India, medical seats. So if you look at medical education seats, MBBS seats, and I take this data from the National Medical Commission website. There are in government medical colleges in India, state, center, all included. Government medical colleges, there are 44,555 seats. In private medical colleges, just a little less, 43,815 seats. Then there are 3 deemed universities which have 8,050 seats. By the way, now we have 19 All India Institutes of Medical Sciences. And there are 8,050 seats in what is called as deemed universities. I think there are about 3 of them. Now, if you look at these numbers, 45,000, 44,000, about 90,000. It looks like a lot of young doctors, but no. We are a country of 1.38 billion people, and our numbers are rising. WHO says that have a minimum of 1 doctor per 1,000 people. And mind you, these have to be real qualified doctors, not some uncle or aunt of mine or yours who says, "Acha beta, ye ho gaya, pop this pill." Or a lot of people in India also claim to be amateur homeopaths. No, not them. These are qualified doctors. So India is very short of doctors. That's why India needs a lot more medical education. India cannot just have 90,000 seats at MBBS level for entrance. India should have maybe 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh, 3 lakh seats, because India needs those doctors. And when that happens, some of these protests, some of these complaints, some of this denial of justice grievances will also go away, because a lot of these are coming today from this completely artificial, self-inflicted calamity of undersupply of quality education.